So for today's session, I'm going to take you all the way back to the beginning when we talked about the diagnosis, when we talked about the signs and symptoms. So for today, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the treatment. But before we do that, there are a couple of things that I want you to kind of go back in time, and I want you to recall some of the situations that I talked about a couple of weeks ago. And that was the little girl in the park. This was in Rochester, Minnesota. Because when you think about that particular activity, that event, that situation, there are some things that should have stopped you dead in your tracks, that would have allowed you to say, aha, this is fear, okay? This is like put down, these kinds of things. Those were parts of the signs and symptoms. And then you got to think about how this little girl was being taught. Because when we fast forward to today and we start talking about how do we treat, racism, these are the kinds of things that you must begin to look at. Adding all of these things together, we'll look at how we're going to go about treating racism. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to look at some of the signs and symptoms again, and then I want you, because you have been given scenarios to begin to look at, to see if you encountered this situation with a family member, with a friend, with a colleague, whomever, and they say something that you know is a racist statement. What are you going to do? How are you going to begin to address this? Now I'm going to give you 4 good examples of ways that you can effect change. This is the cure. So the first thing you can do is, how do you go about educating someone? If someone that you know has knowingly made some statements that you know are false, how are you going to educate them to say, how did you get that? How did you arrive at that, okay? So that's one way to begin to look at. Those scenarios will enable you to come up with a completely different way of looking at it. I don't think like that, or is that hurtful? And so you want them to kind of be a little bit introspective and think about what it is that they're saying that will have an effect on someone else. The next thing you can do is you can question them. And you can ask things, well, why do you say that? What do you mean by that? That's one way to begin, because when you stop someone from saying something, they got to start thinking, well, what did I say? Maybe I didn't say it right. Now, years ago, what I used to do was I used to carry a little pocket mirror in my hand. And you put that little pocket mirror up in front of you, and you get a reflection. It reflects back to you exactly what is being said. And once you examine that, then it kind of puts you in, well, maybe I'm saying it wrong. Maybe I shouldn't have said it that way, those kinds of things. So we're going to educate. We're going to question. We're going to echo. And then you repeat back to the person that you're talking to, and you say it, echo it back to them exactly what it is that they said. And then once you do that, once again, people say, gee whiz, I really didn't mean to come off like that, okay? So that's another way in terms of getting people to begin to think about what it is that they're saying before they do that again. So the cure then includes echo, as I said, repeat back to that person. It includes question. You ask, well, why do you say that? You're questioning them. It includes interrupt them. How do you stop someone? I don't think those words are helpful that way. That phrase that you're saying is not very, very helpful. So you're stopping them before they go on and on and on, continuously making, or as I say, digging a grave about a statement that they're making. So we want to, as I said before, educate. We want to echo. We want to question. And we want to interrupt. Those are the 4 basic principles then in terms of the cure and how you go about effecting change. Now the scenarios, as I said before, when you look at those scenarios, some of those scenarios you will think were a little bit tricky. Well, not necessarily, because remember, each and every one of you are unique individuals, and you're going to see and or interpret something differently. But the point is this: I don't want you to go back and start thinking about, they said this and this is what they said and this is what they meant. No, we're looking at the scenarios as they're written, and I want you to begin to think about what it is that they're saying. What is it that we're trying to get across to you? Now let me remind you, all of those examples that you have are examples. These are true examples. They either happen to me, and or they happen to colleagues of mine, they happen to friends of mine, or they happen to family members. But they're all true examples of things that I know you, in all probability, have experienced by virtue of someone telling you this or telling you that. So dig deep, and in the process of digging deep, you're going to be able to come up with the kinds of things that I know, I trust you. I do believe that each and every one of you have it in your heart and your soul to make the kinds of changes that I know you can make when we start looking at the diagnosis of racism, the signs and symptoms of racism, the cure for racism, and then looking ahead, fast forwarding ahead to what do we do in terms of the outcome of the prognosis. All of these are things that you would expect if you went to the doctor and you were told that you had this or you had that. These are the symptoms that you're presenting to the doctor, and you're hoping that they can come up with a cure to effect change, okay? So now, dig deep and think positively about the kinds of things that you really want to do to try and get this racism off the medical charts, because it does have an impact on people that's long-lasting with all kinds of problems, and many of you have not anticipated or given thought to before. Okay, so by way of summarization of today's session, today's workshop, you've had a chance to look at the scenarios that have been presented to you. And as I said before, by the way, all of these are scenarios that have happened at some point in time over the years to colleagues of mine, to me, to family members, etc. And so the goal, however, was to get you to begin to look at how would you go about implementing the treatment plan. And that treatment plan, as stated before, includes echoing back, it includes educating, it includes questioning, and it includes interruption. So what I want you to do and to think about in terms of the summary is I'm going to read one of the scenarios that you have in front of you, and I want you to kind of think about how we would implement a strategy to either echo, educate, question, or interrupt. And that particular scenario is number 3. Well, it could be number 3, it could be another one on some of your other, some of you could have a different number. But the scenario is about the store closing and the cash-only final sale. And you are in line at a store closing and a cash-only final sale behind a white woman and an African-American woman who is having her purchases totaled for payment. The woman hands the associate her money, and you overhear the associate tell her to put the money down on the counter. The African-American woman places her money on the counter as requested, and the associate returns her change by placing it down on the counter. The white woman looks stunned, but says nothing. When it is your turn, the associate says, I don't take money in my hand from black people. I have no idea where that money has been. Now let's reflect back to the treatment plan. And I want you to tell me by way of summary, would it have been good to educate? Would it have been good to echo? Would it have been good to question? And or would it have been good to interrupt? Now remember, this is the African American woman who is told to put her money down on the counter. This is what the woman at the checkout counter tells her to do. She complies with that. But now you're behind her and you overhear this conversation. Did you, at any point in time, stop? Did you say something to the associate? Or did you find that it was better for you to wait until the woman left, had checked out, and then perhaps say something to the associate? These are things that I want you to think about because this is the treatment plan. Did you question why she said that? Did you educate her about that? Or did you not interrupt her? These are the things that you must do. These are the things, if you're going to become an ally, if you really, really, really wanted to eradicate racism, then there are times when you as a person must speak up and speak out. Otherwise, to say nothing says that you consent. To say nothing says that you are okay with it. But if you do take the time to educate, to echo, to interrupt, and or to question, then I know you are beginning to look at racism in a completely different way. So educate, echo, interrupt, and question are the fundamentals of the treatment plan that we must use and engage in on a day-to-day basis if we are to change this entire trajectory of racism as it currently exists.